Good morning everyone. My name is Melissa and I'm an assistant buyer here at Rogers Gardens, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about this fabulous little plant, Echeveria Sahara. This is our featured plant of the week for our Fall is for Planting program. It's going to be 25% off with all of our other succulents as well as our natives and shrubs. For this Fall is for Planting program, we really just want to promote and inform everyone that right now fall is the time to be planting in Southern California. The weather is a lot cooler, there's a lot more natural rainfall. So it's really the best time to get everything into the ground so the roots can get established, and then it'll have the best chance to survive and get all that new growth and blooms and flowers and fruits for the springtime, and you can just sit back and relax for that period of time. So Echeveria Sahara is a great plant. We picked this for our plant of the week because it's a little bit more heat and sun tolerant than some of the other Echeverias and succulents out there. So it's a great choice for Southern California gardens. And today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the basic care and maintenance for it. To start off with is sunlight. You always want to consider your light requirements when you're getting a new plant. So everyone knows that succulents need a lot of natural light, but it's maybe a little bit of a misconception on exactly how much light that they need. If you put them out in the garden and it's in like full blazing heat, like in the middle of the Sahara Desert or something, it's probably going to be a little too intense for them and they might get sunburned, and we don't want you to get disappointed with that. So just keep in mind that they don't want to be in like full blazing sun, but as much light as you can offer them is usually the best. Like I mentioned earlier, Echeveria Sahara is a little more tolerant to the sun, and so you'll have better chances of getting this in your garden without experiencing any sunburn or anything like that. Basically, if you're getting it in more than 5 hours of sunlight a day, it should be totally golden. Up to like 8 hours is really great for them. Also, a good thing to consider when you're getting a succulent for your garden is that a lot of times when you're buying them in the nursery and they're fresh from the greenhouse, they've been acclimated in really like the perfect conditions for them. So they've been given all of the right requirements in that greenhouse condition, maybe not exposed to a lot of direct light. So even though they're able to tolerate more sun, you might have to acclimate them when you get them home to your garden, just to make sure they don't sunburn. Don't just throw them like directly out into the full sun spot in your yard. It might be a good idea to just slowly gradually expose them to more light over a couple weeks, just so they don't get too sunburned, and you should be good with that. Another great thing about Sahara specifically is that it has all of these beautiful like little pink edges and stuff on its leaves, and those colors will actually intensify if you get them in more sun. Colorful succulents like this are great because they use those pigments as a sort of sunscreen to protect their leaves from the sun. So just like our skin tans and darkens to protect our skin from UV radiation, they're doing that same thing with these colors. So the more sun that you get this plant in, the more colorful it's going to be, which is really excellent. Next, we're just going to talk about the watering requirements. Once again, mostly everyone knows that succulents are pretty drought tolerant, and so you don't need to water them too much, but you do need to water them. You can't just leave them dry forever. So make sure you're watering them. If you're really shooting to draw back on your watering in your garden and conserve as much water as you can probably get away with watering it about like once a month. When you first get it planted, you always want to water them a little bit more just to help them get established, but once it's been established for a couple weeks, you can probably get away with once a month. But some succulent enthusiasts that really want to see their succulents thriving and living their best lives might water them more often, maybe even up to once a week. So anywhere between that once a week to once a month range should be good. Succulents don't need a lot of water to survive, but they do need a little bit more if you really want to see them thrive. So if you want to see them pushing lots and lots of growth, more blooms, maybe shooting some pups off that you can propagate, water more like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they'll fill that space faster for you. Once you get them to the size that you need and you want them to just kind of stay that way, you can draw back on the watering a lot, and that should help keep them kind of at that level. The main thing with watering is you always want to let the soil dry out thoroughly in between waterings. So depending on the conditions you're in, you might have to water more or less. Maybe during the summer you're watering a little bit more. During the winter you're drawing way back on the watering because you're getting that natural rainfall. But you always want to be checking the soil and making sure it's drying out at least a little bit before you water again for next time. A good way to help with that is just using our cactus mix either in the container or in the ground when you're potting it. And that'll help the water just drain a little bit better and keep the soil nice and aerated for them. I also just wanted to touch on some pests and diseases and other ailments and stuff you might want to look out for. Succulents are great because they don't have a lot of pest problems, but there are a couple ones that you should keep your eye out for. Mainly aphids and mealybugs and maybe even some scale. Those are all kind of soft-bodied insects that are going to be eating or sucking the sap out of the leaves of these plants. They'll kind of get into this new growth right here in the center
Can you move your mic a little bit closer to your mouth? Sorry. Okay.
There you go. Better?
You're good. Yep. Perfect.
So they're going to be in these little crevices in here. So you just want to watch out for those. And a good way to prevent that is just by getting, maybe on a hot day, on a hot morning, getting your hose and turning the spray on really high and just spraying the plants down pretty hard. This is a good practice to do with all of your plants, really. Roses, other shrubs and things, just to knock off any of those soft-bodied insects as they're getting kind of established. And if you do see an infestation starting, you can just get like a basic insecticidal soap or neem oil and spray it down with that. And that should help take care of the problem. You might need to do a couple applications to take care of it completely, but that should get rid of them. And you always want to use any insecticidal sprays in the evening. So do your hose spray in the morning and then use your soaps and your neem oil and stuff in the afternoon or in the evening before it gets dark, because you don't want to be putting that stuff on in the morning when they're going to have the sun beating on those chemicals. You want to do it in the evening when it has time to break down a little bit for the plant, and that's going to help a lot. Another thing that you might encounter with succulents is root rot. And if you follow my guidelines for the watering requirements, you should be good for this. But root rot happens when basically the whole wellness of the plant just is going downhill pretty fast. Maybe it's losing leaves and yellowing or browning, and the base of the plant's getting kind of mushy. That's probably a sign of root rot. If the stem of the plant down in here is truly like mushy, it's probably too far gone. Unfortunately, you should just trash it and look into getting another one. But if you just make sure that the soil is drying thoroughly in between the waterings every time, you shouldn't have that problem. And you should be all set with that. Another thing I just want to talk about is this like phenomenon called etolation. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it's basically just the stretching out of the succulent. It's pretty normal. It's not a sign of bad health necessarily, but the succulent is physically stretching towards the light source because it's not getting enough energy. And so it's trying to get more energy from the sun by moving towards maybe a window or something, or towards like a sunnier area of the yard. So if you see that and your succulent's getting really spindly, losing leaves at the base and getting super stretched out, you just want to put it in a sunnier location basically, and you should be good. As they get older, that'll just kind of happen naturally. So if yours is like a couple years old, it's just going to get kind of tall and stretched out. It's going to lose some leaves and stuff at the base. That's normal. You can actually like cut off the top of it and then just stick that back in the ground and discard of the stemmy bits, and then you can keep everything nice and low if that's your goal for your succulents. So that's kind of a hack to work your way around that stretching. But mainly just get them in a nice sunny location. You shouldn't have to worry about that too much. As far as design with them, they're really versatile, great dynamic plant. This one specifically because it's so colorful as well. As you can see, it kind of has a nice architectural look to it. It's good and round and symmetrical, but it also has a very organic, flowery appearance as well. It's nice and natural. It kind of looks like an opening rose, truly, but it's this great, tough succulent, which is awesome. So you can use it in a lot of different ways in your garden as long as it's well draining and sunny. Basically, you can put it anywhere you want. They look really great in clusters together, maybe with some other like agave or aloes or different types of echeveria in there with them. If you have like a rock garden or maybe like a dry creek bed or something in your yard, that would look awesome in there. They look really great tucked up like underneath little boulders and stuff, and this will help them get a little bit of shade from the sun, but also good drainage and a lot of light around them. And they're just, yeah, good in rock gardens, good in any kind of drought tolerant landscaping that you've got going on. And they're good in containers too. Main thing with containers is just making sure you have good drainage in them and that you're using a cactus mix just to make sure it's well draining in there. Another thing I just want to touch on with them just before closing up is their potential to attract pollinators. So if you tuned in with us on Saturday, you likely saw Kathleen Brenzel, the editor of Sunset Magazine, introducing her new book, The Healthy Garden. And she had a little bit of a succulent guru come on. Her name is Deborah Lee Baldwin, and she was talking about how great succulents can be for attracting pollinators. And so she mentioned aloes and agaves, but also echeverias is one of the great ones to use to bring more pollinators to your gardens. This one in particular is pretty cool because it has slightly more of a tubular flower. And so this is good for animals like hummingbirds or butterflies that have a long beak or a long tongue to get into that flower. But other things like bees are maybe not so attracted to them because they just can't get in deep enough. So if you have a space in your garden where you really want to bring some more pollinators, but you're maybe not so keen on having the bees specifically, this is a great one to try and see if you can like selectively attract certain pollinators. No guarantees. If there's flowers, there might be bees, but it's a really good way to try to see if you can kind of get less bees around but more of your other pollinators. So to summarize, I hope this inspired you to try out one of our beautiful Echeveria Saharas. They're 25% off for Fall is for Planting sale, along with our other succulents and shrubs and natives. They're a beautiful plant to toss into your garden. They're really easy to grow, more heat tolerant, sun tolerant. I also forgot to mention earlier, but they're even supposed to be resistant down into like the low 30s and 20s. So if you're in the Inland Empire and you're afraid of getting a little frost, this is a great plant for you to try as well. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys turn out for our Fall is for Planting program. You can also join me on Thursday for our Wally Pocket video. And then if you missed any of this, you can rewatch on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And you can also follow and subscribe us on all of those channels. We also have a Pinterest for some more how-tos, as well as our YouTube channel. You can come in and shop our new Christmas boutique and everything here in the store, and you can also check it out online. And also make sure to subscribe for our emails. It's going to give you lots of cool updates of all the programs that we have going on, any specials, any sales. That's all going to come through on there, so make sure you sign up for those, and you can also be part of our rewards program that way. Enter any questions or comments, concerns that you have in the comments below, and we'll make sure to answer those for you. And you can also suggest some future topics if you'd like for us to go over anything else. And happy gardening!